Hey, this is Matt with Let's Talk Music. I'm here with John Parsons of Immerser. How you doing today, buddy?
I'm doing great, man. Thanks for having me.
And John and I were scheduled to do an interview on Friday, and I had a little bit of a traumatic experience, and he has agreed to, work with me today at 2 o'clock. So let's go ahead and get started, man. Tell me about the new single.
Well, thanks again for having me on. I appreciate it, and thanks for rescheduling. It's awesome being able to speak with you. And I would. So the newest single is called "Blame," and it was released maybe a month or so ago, maybe a little bit, maybe a month and a half ago. It's been doing very, very well, and kind of for me, it was mostly going back to like a straightforward kind of rock approach. And I grew up, well, I was born in the 80s, but I grew up, you know, in the 90s, right? Like listening to grunge and early metal, and
Right.
stuff like that. And so I've kind of been noticing a resurgence of that stuff again.
Mm-hmm.
People, are saying, oh, well, rock's dead, or grunge is the past, or all of that, which I think is garbage.
Right.
And I've been noticing a resurgence of it. And for a while there, I kind of tried to, my earlier stuff back in the late 90s, early 2000s was very alternative rock, grunge, stuff like that. And then I kind of veered away from that and tried to do some more different kind of stuff. But I always felt most comfortable, writing grunge music or writing songs in that way. And so I was like, you know what, I'm just gonna go with my heart, and kind of go back to basics. And so that single really does have that sort of grunge rock, alternative rock, at its feel, at its
Mm-hmm.
core. And it's the first single off of an upcoming album called Rain Machine. And that whole album has a lot of that. I kind of went back to basics, back to when I was a kid, what I was writing, what I've been listening to, everything I listened to back then, trying to put myself back in that headspace,
Mm-hmm.
because I feel like it's authentic.
Right.
That type of music is very authentic. And I feel like there's a lack of that right now. There's a lack of authenticity. Everything sounds the same. It's all these cookie cutter kind of things, and it's just getting old, man. And I feel like there's something magical about authenticity. You
Right.
know what I mean? So I'm trying to capture that, and it's been really great, man. This whole Rain Machine project has been awesome. So Blame is the first single. Um, I did a cover of a Pixies song called Wave of Mutilation.
Okay.
Um, and then I've done some other stuff. I've got two more singles coming out, and then I just released one. It's called Blood Glitter, and that was a little bit of a sort of 90s kind of sneaker pimps sort of garbage kind of thing. And I actually
Right.
had my fiance Mandy, she did the vocals for it, so that turned out really cool. And then I have another project coming up with that's also going to be on that Rain Machine album with Aaron Nordstrom of Gemini Syndrome,
Mm-hmm.
which will be cool. And then I've got another outside of that album. I've got a project coming out with Violent Idols, so I'm pretty excited about all these collaborations. So Rain Machine, it's going to be awesome. It'll probably be out around September, but I'm going to be releasing singles along the way. So hope that
Right.
it's a long
Yeah,
answer, but
that's what everybody's doing right now. I mean, everybody that I talk to, they're all usually independent artists. They're releasing single after single. Maybe they're doing it, you know, one every month, one every 2 months. I know one guy, he said he was going to do like one every 2 weeks, leading up to the album. And I honestly feel like that's a good way to do it versus the traditional way, because usually it was the album was released and then you had the single from it, which was usually either the self-titled song or whatever, and it was usually the best song on the album. Everything else was kind of mediocre. So now, with people doing it this way, you can listen to, what these people are, putting out and say, okay, yeah, I want to hit with these couple of songs, don't, care for the whole thing, or man, this is an awesome album. Or, even one band I did, they did kind of like a Queensryche thing of a storytelling. So, I think the way that you guys are doing it is definitely the right way, especially in today's industry with, everybody streaming and shit.
Yeah, it's a different thing for me. It took me a while to kind of adjust to that. Back when I was I was in a band called Delusia for like 15 years back in Bay Area. And so I come from the releasing an album kind of thing where you would go to the studio and record a full album and then put out CDs and all that stuff. And it wasn't until maybe about like 3 years ago that I started kind of straying away from that.
Mm-hmm.
And also just not having physical media was really weird for me, because I even when MP3s became a thing and everybody was downloading music, I still would press up like physical copies as well. And then I kind of stopped doing that completely, and that was really weird. It was kind of a weird feeling, but it is cool. And I like just releasing singles.
Mm-hmm.
Because it's less pressure on me, because then I don't have to think like Queensryche, Operation Mindcrime, or Empire, or like I can release these like pieces, and also it kind of forces you, well, not all artists, but it forces me to try to put out the best song possible, right? Because when you're doing an album, you have like one really great song, maybe two more awesome songs, and then the rest are kind of maybe filler or something. Not in all cases, but this way you kind of get rid of a lot of that stuff that you don't need, right? It's no longer filler, because you're presenting your audience with something special every time, because you want it's being presented as something important, right? So then and then once you have a certain amount, you can collect them onto an album, and then it's actually a very enjoyable listening experience, because so much attention has gone into every single track, as opposed to just let's do 3 songs and put a bunch of other stuff on there. So it's pretty cool. And I think although that is the case, this new album I'm working on, Rain Machine, is a little bit more guided. It's not so the last album I put out called Transmute was a little bit more all over the place musically, and just having a bunch of different guests and stuff like that. And this one's a little bit more focused, so it is kind of I wouldn't say it's necessarily a story, but there are elements that flow through the whole thing as a cohesive piece. So yeah, man.
So you're a solo artist.
Yeah.
So just like any other solo artist I talk to, I mean, when you go out and do shows, are you using backing tracks, or do you actually have people that play with you?
Well, ultimately, I mean, I would prefer people to play with me. You know what I mean? Like, I, at this point, I'm not playing any live gigs or anything like that.
Mm-hmm.
It's kind of a conscious choice on my part. Being involved in music and performing since I was 10 years old. I'm 39, I think now, or 38, one of the two. I've been doing this my whole life. And the amount of effort it takes to put on a show, the amount of practice, the amount of getting other people in the band on the same page and to perform at a particular level to make the song come across the way it's supposed to is a lot of work. You almost have to be either a live performing band or a recording band. You know what I mean? It's like if you think of the Beatles, at one point it was like they became a recording band, and there's no way they could possibly do that live what they did. I'd have to like carbon copy myself, right? So at this point, I'm kind of just making music, recording it, putting it out. Not to mention, I have a day job, and life is a little bit different now, right? It's not like as an artist you can just make a living, really. Like I make like fractions of a cent for every stream, if that. So it's not like I could just go tour or something and make a living. I have to support myself and my family and have a place to live and things like that.
I feel you on that one, buddy.
Yeah, it's kind of a weird balance, because not touring enables me to have a job that's consistent, right? Which enables me to be able to pay for the equipment and things I need to create music. It's this really weird kind of cycle, but I'm having a good time with it, and it really enables me to kind of just be creative and not stress about it. And that doesn't mean I won't perform. I'd love to perform. It's just a matter of finding the right people, and it has to be the right time. And I've been approached by some different bands to tour with them or fill in on guitar for some things, and it's just not the right time for me right now,
Right.
But I'm not opposed to doing some stuff. I might do maybe a charity or maybe play some acoustic stuff, or I don't know.
I'm sure you, being alternative and whatnot in early, 90s and 2000s, you probably have heard of Adelita's Way out of Las Vegas.
Yeah, I've heard of them. I've never actually heard them though.
Okay. They, during the pandemic, the singer Rick was doing a bunch of like live streams. So he was talking about upcoming music and this and that. And then they did a couple of live stream concerts, which turned out really well. So, I mean, if you would, ever thought about doing something like that, just while you're recording or whatever, they just kind of, I would say, put up a background and just played,
That's cool.
and it turned, I mean, like I said, it turned out really well. I mean, you would look at the views and it just up, and I mean, it's right now, social media is like the most important thing to get yourself out there. I mean, you got, back in the day you had MTV, you had radio stations that would promote your, new release, whatever. And I know here we have 99.7 The Blitz. They just turned 30. Great radio station, all rock. But I've approached them a couple of times with different bands that I thought were really good. And, they're like, well, have them send it to our local stuff on Sunday or Saturday or whatever. And I'm like, well, I get where you're coming from, but, they're playing all these mainstream bands and nobody else that's out there really gets heard. And honestly, my wife kind of gets on my case once in a while because, she's like, you're spending money on this, you're spending money on that. And I'm like, well, I'm trying to turn this into something.
Yeah.
There's some things that I agree I've bought and they're just still sitting there right now. I need to get them back out and use them. But I want to do, we go on vacation in September. After I get back, I want to start a podcast. And I found with a podcast, I can play your music, this other man's music, whatever, because all I have to have is your permission.
Right.
And I think that would be another good way to, offer my contribution to what you guys are doing, because a lot of these independent artists, that I interview are great bands. I mean, I don't turn any bands down, I mean, I'm willing to give anybody a shot, talk to anybody. I may not be like, oh yeah, this is a great song, but I dig it in some way, you know what I mean? And I like where you're coming from with the, authenticity. It's, from the heart. It's not produced music, to where it's, just a bunch of backing tracks and stuff. So yeah, I mean, that's definitely something I'm gonna look into when I get back. And, I'm gonna hit all these guys up. I'm gonna hit all my publicists up because I've got a file saved for every band that I've interviewed. And I can just hit them up by email and say, hey, you got any new music? Do you care if I play this song? Whatever, and it gets it out there.
Yeah. I mean, I feel like, it's always a struggle as an artist to get your stuff out there. But I'm kind of in a cool position because I do have the experience from back in the day when, you had to literally go around on your skateboard or your bike or whatever and slap stickers all over town. You had to get, press up or even hand draw your own artwork sometimes, or photocopy flyers and stickers up over town. And then, negotiate with the manager of Tower Records to just, will you please just stock like 5 of my CDs? And if they all sell, we'll bring more, like that kind of a guerrilla style marketing, you know what I mean? So I have a little background in that. And then learning some of the tools that are offered now online and, social media and stuff like that. It's kind of cool because in a weird way, I can integrate some of that guerrilla style with some of the more socially acceptable avenues of this. But, I I really do. I mean, you hear it a lot. People are always now they're very much comes up a lot where people say, oh, the radio sucks. Oh, mainstream music sucks. Oh, like there's nothing good. There's no more music, video, TV or whatever. There's not blah, blah, blah. But it's like the same people that say that are the same people that are like friends with these other bands or support these local bands or independent artists. And then they'll see like an independent artist will post like, hey, new single. And then what they'll do is just click like and then just keep going.
Right.
You expect like to ever change anything if you just like and go. Like you
Right.
gotta share it.
Right.
You
And
know
see,
what I
that,
mean? Like it and then share it. Tell your friends, spread the word.
and that's what I do. I mean, like whenever I'm done with these interviews, I put it up on YouTube. I put it on my Facebook. I have a Facebook page called Let's Talk Music that reaches a broader audience than just my friends.
Yeah.
You know, so yeah, it's I'm I'm just a fan of music, man. I love music, always have, always will. I know there's been quite a few things that, you know, songs that I've heard that have helped me through some hard times. You know, it's and I especially love musicians that really have good meaning to their songs. You know, and it's just I want to be able to help in any way that I can. You know, I wish that when I was younger, I would have listened to people because they were like, oh man, you know so much about music and this and that. You should get into this. You should get into that. I wish I would have maybe taken a journalism class or like some kind of, you know, got into it somehow. But now I'm glad I didn't because the industry is just blah.
Yeah, it is kind of it's sort of it's going through a transition right now for sure. And like on one hand, I feel like there's less authenticity out there. But I also feel like there's more control almost like artists are they don't necessarily need a record label.
Right.
They can do it on their own, and that means they have more control over their, you know, what they're putting out and their creative vision and stuff. So it's a kind of a weird time, but I feel like it's coming around. Like I said, I feel like there's this sort of resurgence of like people want to hear real music.
Right.
I feel like people have forgotten that, like, yeah, you can make a keyboard sound like a guitar, but it's never going to be a guitar. Right. Like, so, you know, I could sit here and, you know, come up with a guitar part on the keyboard and put it through all these processors and, oh, there you go. Like, here's this perfect guitar with no deviance, no nothing. But to me, like, what makes music special is the human element of it, right? So when you listen to like Pantera, there's something special there it's almost it's authentic, it's natural. Like, you know, you can there's mistakes in some of it. There's, you know, little things that make it sound better. And like, to me, that's more important, you know what I mean? Like, and I feel like that's kind of coming back. I feel like a lot of the, you know, younger kids or whatever, they kind of grew up with this Britney Spears bullshit, and it's fucking tiring, honestly. I mean, I don't know if I'm allowed to cuss or whatever.
You're allowed to cuss.
Yeah, it's just fucking, it's done, it's old, it's been done. It's like, come on, like, you know, let's get back to what it really means to be an artist, you know what I mean? And it happens, it's cyclical, man. Like, it's always going to be like this. You're going to have a lot of really cool art and just stuff that, you know, people have actually something to say, and then it just kind of, you know, gets sort of boring for a while, and then it picks up. And I feel like we're kind of moving towards this pickup because a lot of people are angry. A lot of younger people are distraught because they have, I mean, look at the world we're in right now. You know what I mean? Right. So it's a very confusing time. And usually, and there's a lot of people that are in fear or things like that, which kind of promotes creativity, you know? So you have a lot of that kind of bubbling up. And I think that's why this right now I'm seeing like a resurgence of some of the 90s stuff, because back when we were kids in the 90s and 80s, it was kind of a resurgence of the 60s and 70s, right?
Right.
Like, we just kind of put our own little twist on it, you know what I mean? And then so now it's kind of like the same thing, but for like the 90s, but with a little bit of a twist on it. And it's not quite peaked yet. It's on its way though. I mean, you have like, I mean, look at the bands that are touring again right now. Like Rage Against the Machine is just started touring. Pantera's going to start touring.
I know. I seen that. I was like, whoa.
Yeah, L7 is going on. I'm going to go see L7 in October. I just saw Failure. They're an amazing band, one of the greatest bands ever. And if you don't know who they are, you should definitely check them out. You know, and I'm sure there's a bunch more I'm not thinking of. But that's, you know, I don't know, man.
So when you get your album complete, are you going to, you was talking about physical copies, are you going to make any physical copies?
I usually do. What I'll do is you know, press up, you know, maybe 100 or something, and then I'll give them to friends and family, or I'll do signed, you know, autographed copies for people or whatever. I like having physical copies because, you know, to be able to give to somebody right away.
Mm-hmm.
But it's also cool to have something tangible, like I created this, you know.
Right.
And also if something happens, which is bound to happen, where everything that's digital just disappears like that because something beyond our control happens, there goes your entire music catalog, everything you ever did in your life. And I, you know, like I think it's important to leave something physical just in case things do go down. You know, someday maybe somebody will come across an Immerser CD or something, you know.
I'll tell, I mean,
Yeah.
vinyl's making a big comeback.
Yeah.
I
Dude, I
mean,
love vinyl.
I've got a couple that a wife bought me a record player for Christmas, and I almost teared up, dude. It was like one of the greatest gifts she's ever given me. And I was just like, wow, you know, and she got me, was it Leonard Skinner, working for MCA, Led Zeppelin, and the Eagles, Hotel California. And so recently I did a interview with the band Otherwise and Saliva. And there was another band there called Ninth Planet Out. And just to get back to that, I got a signed copy of an album from Saliva, vinyl. But Ninth Planet Out, I shit you not, had a cassette tape sitting on their table for sale. And I looked at that and I said, that's pretty awesome. But what's anybody going to play it in?
Yeah.
You know, I mean, it's, some people may still have, you know, tape players, but
Yeah.
I mean, vinyl, when the kind of started rearing its head again, you know, it's all Bluetooth, you know, so it either plays through your little console that you have, which mine does that, and it sounds more like authentic vinyl. But if I hook my Bluetooth speaker up to it, then it sounds like it's coming off the radio. So I kind of like that crackling sound, you know, the record and everything. I mean, you know, you said you grew up or was born in the 80s. I was born in 76, you know, I mean, so 80s is kind of when I grew up, and that's when, you know, vinyl was huge.
Yeah. I mean, that's some of my first experiences with music were records, you know. Like my mom was a huge music fan, and my father was a musician and also a huge music fan. So they, you know, when they got married, they combined their record collection. So we had this huge record collection in the corner of the living room. You know, it's always in my consciousness as a kid. You know, and I remember pulling the records out before I even really knew what they were, and just looking at them, and you know, oh, this looks really cool. And so it's always been a part of my life. And I remember being really little and listening to like weird records, like you know, they'd have like the storybook records, or they would have a movie that would come out, and then there would be like, you know, somebody narrating a short form version of the movie. Yep. I had like the ET record. I had like, you know, the Gremlins, stuff like that I listened to as a kid. And it is, like you say, like there's something very comforting and familiar about the sound of a record, you know, those pops and clicks, and
it's nostalgic.
Yeah, it's nostalgic, but it's real, which is exactly right. It's authentic. It's
right.
A natural, tangible thing that is like, you know, it's real. It's not perfect, and nothing is perfect, you know?
Very true.
So,
all right, John. Well, I know it's a Saturday, and I'm sure you probably got stuff to do. Just wanted to throw in one more question. When I listened to the song, and I looked at your press release, you're wearing a Sex Pistols t-shirt. And to me, you know, where I was looking at the press release, it was talking about how it was kind of, you know, an alternative with a twist on it, this and that. I almost felt like it was more of like a punk rock.
Interesting.
Like it really, I'm not saying so much the lyrics or, you know, but kind of the way the music flows with it. It's almost like a punk rock musically. You know what I mean? Not a musical, but musically.
Yeah, no, I agree with you, man. And I think if you look at a lot of the bands that were successful during the grunge kind of stuff, they were punk in a way. Like even Nirvana, for example, is a punk band.
Right.
They're taking their core is punk music, and then they're just kind of taking some elements from Black Sabbath and maybe some elements from like the Beatles. You know what I mean? Kind of, or Soundgarden, punk. You know, all of this comes from punk. You know, and to me, punk isn't really like it's such a weird thing because punk and grunge and metal, like those are such huge, they encompass so much, right?
Right.
But it's the idea of authenticity, right? You're getting up there, you're playing your actual instrument. You have something to say. It's not just, well, not all music punk has something to say,
right,
but you know what I mean? Like the stuff that lasts is stuff that has something to say. But yeah, I mean, I've been inspired by that stuff for sure, but for me it's more about the authenticity. You know what I mean? Like,
right.
You look at somebody like the Sex Pistols, which is, you know, that was a whole crazy story on its own or whatever, but
right,
a good example of something just coming out of nowhere and just decimating all of this fake bullshit with like authenticity. Just boom, like this is really what's going on. And then Nirvana did the same damn thing, right?
Right.
Boom, they just decapitated Michael Jackson off the charts.
Right.
You know, like and I'm feel like that's gonna happen again soon. Like something's gonna happen and just, you know. And for me, it's a celebration of that. You know what I mean? Like I'm all for that. Like I'm waiting for the next Sex Pistols. I'm waiting for the next Nirvana, or hopefully be a part of that, or be a influence in some way. Maybe somebody will hear something I've written and be like, oh wow, that's really cool. Like let me try this. Or but yeah, man, I definitely understand what you're saying.
Yeah, I mean, and just to correct myself, today is Sunday, not Saturday. Like I said, you know, Friday was a bit freaking. They all end in day, you know.
Yeah.
But no, and just like I guess what it really made me think of when you first started singing was the Clash. I hope that's not a insult, but
no, not at all, man. I mean, I love the Clash. I'm not like a huge Clash fan, but I respect them, and I like them because they were kind of all over the place. They weren't, they tried different things, and that's what I mean about like that music. Punk music is just something that's different, And, yeah, man, I love all that stuff, and I'm a huge fan of Social Distortion. I love the Misfits. The Ramones, obviously, and things like that. So.
Yep. All right, buddy. Well, like I said, I do appreciate your time. I appreciate you working with me. I've got your email. So once I get this edited and everything, I'll send it to you. I'll also send you like my Facebook page. That way, if you have anything you want to post on there, any new, singles coming out or whatever, you have my email. You can send me, new tracks, check it out, and maybe when you get your album released, we can speak again.
That'd be great, man. I look forward to it. And thank you for what you do. Thank you for supporting independent artists and helping us, on our new musical revolution of authenticity.
There you go, brother. All right, man. You have a good day.
You too. See ya.
Right. Bye.